Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel, Forward Movement. For those who watch my New Year's Day video, welcome back. And anyone joining for the first time, welcome as well. And I hope all of you find some takeaways from today's presentation. In today's video, I will be focusing on how to brave that first step, because I'm sure you've heard the first step is always the hardest. Just like me doing this YouTube video, I just take the first step, I open my mouth, and things just come spilling out. But seriously, there's a great deal of truth in that statement, and so I will attempt to explore that truth and boost your courage to take the first step in whatever journey you're wanting to embark on this year. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, so here we are. Okay. I wanted to start with this quote because there is obviously great truth in it. And the quote is, "The way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing." And this quote is by none other than Walt Disney. Oh, don't we all love Disney? I'm sure probably many of you, if not all of you, have experienced Disney, either at Disneyland, Disney World, somewhere in the world, or Disney movies, Disney merchandise. I think Walt Disney has touched the entire world. And if you think about it, did he just wake up one day and boom, Disneyland came about and all of these things came about? Well, absolutely not. He began with stopping talking about it and he began doing. And he had many failures along the way. If you look into the history of his success, he had many failures and many times where he, I think, almost went bankrupt. And again, it was not a success from the get-go. But what did he do? He kept trying, he kept taking those steps, and he stopped talking about it and he started doing. And this can apply to every one of us in whatever journey we want to embark on and whatever we are wanting for ourselves. Once we stop talking about it and start doing, that's that forward movement that will propel us and create the power that is within us. So here's our agenda. We're going to review a little bit from my last video. We're going to review the intrinsic. And in that review, we're going to talk about what the heck is this I greater than E greater than S. And then we're going to review the constructs of health and wellness. And then I have a very simple 12-week plan that I'm going to offer as a resource for you in case that is something that you find helpful for you to begin the year. Again, as an introduction, my name is Janice Pearson, and I have a bachelor's degree in public health with an emphasis on health promotion. I'm also a certified health education specialist, a certified intrinsic health and well-being coach, a national board certified health and well-being coach, and I also provide one-on-one personal health coaching through my Painted Quarter Intrinsic Solutions business. And the purpose of my channel is to help others discover their own health and well-being that makes sense to them and to help them find clarity around all that they're wanting, and then to offer various resources and guidance. So this brings us to our intrinsic review. The intrinsic domain is what is true, inherent, essential, not merely apparent, completely unique, absolute, cannot be quantified or compared to anything else. It's not replaceable, it's irreplicable, and there's only one. Which also brings us to, you are intrinsic because you also embody all of those qualities. There is no one in this universe exactly like you, which in definition is singularity. It is the true definition of singularity. Singularity means only one. Nothing else is like it. And so you being intrinsic is the singularity that encompasses the infinite array and limitless value and potential found in the multitude of only one. And I highlighted, or bolded, I should say, limitless value and potential, because I want to stress that you as a human being have limitless value and potential. And that's another goal, or what I hope to accomplish with this channel, is to help people understand and find clarity around their limitless value and potential. So intrinsic change is when your thinking leads to certain choices, and then your thinking changes so that different choices make more sense. It also parallels a common quote, and forgive me, I don't have the author of the quote handy, but the quote goes like this: you do the best that you can, and when you know better, you do better. That is intrinsic change. Intrinsic change is making choices according to your thinking, not someone else's thinking, but making choices according to your thinking. And then when your thinking changes so that different choices make more sense, that is intrinsic change. Okay, so now let's get into what the heck is I greater than E greater than S. I have to start with this first bullet point because it's been kind of a joke between my daughter and me. I was driving one day with my daughter a number of years ago, and I don't know if any of you have seen these stickers on the windows of cars, on the backs of cars. Well, I saw one of these stickers, and I'd seen them before, and every time I saw them, to me, I looked at it and my brain saw heady, because our brains use our experiences, our past experiences, to as a lens to interpret current experiences. And so my brain saw heady. And so I was driving with my daughter and I asked her, what's this heady sticker? And she just looked at me and busted out laughing. And of course, I'm like, what are you laughing at? What's so funny? And she said, Mom, it doesn't say heady. It says he greater than I. And of course, this is referring to he being God, being Christ, being deity, is greater than I, a mortal person here on earth. And when she said that, all of a sudden my brain looked at that sticker that I was looking at, and I could see it clearly. I could see that it said he greater than I, and then I could no longer see heady. It no longer read heady to me anymore. All of a sudden, I had clarity, and I realized, oh, that's what that sticker means. So I'm hoping to have the same experience with you with this I greater than E greater than S. And when I first saw it, I kind of had the same experience as the he greater than I not making sense to me. So the I stands for intrinsic, the E stands for extrinsic, and the S stands for systemic. And what this means is that when you utilize intrinsic information to inform extrinsic choices and use the two of them to inform systemic understanding, then you find clarity and forward movement. So in more lay terms, this means, or more simpler terms, this means that the wanting informs the doing, which informs the becoming. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on what all of this means on the next slide. And I'll also continue in these videos to explain the intrinsic domain and how it relates to the extrinsic and the systemic. So when thinking about people, we also can apply the intrinsic, extrinsic, and systemic domains. And this includes thinking about yourself. And there are two parts to thinking about people. There's external thinking and there's internal thinking. Your external thinking is you're thinking about the world around you, including your thinking about yourself. So my thinking about the world around me, including my thinking about you as a person. Now, the internal thinking is my thinking about myself. So now let's look at the difference between intrinsic thinking, extrinsic thinking, and systemic thinking. Intrinsic thinking is my thinking about other people as people. That's the external intrinsic thinking. Internal intrinsic thinking is my thinking about myself as a person. Extrinsic external thinking, that's a tongue twister, is my practical thinking about things and the world around me, including people. My thinking about people the way I would think about things. Now, my internal extrinsic thinking is my thinking about my role and place in the world around me, my thinking about myself the way I would think about a thing. Systemic external thinking is my thinking about how things should be, systems and order that make sense to me, and facts. My thinking about how people should be, people's value in the context of systems and schemes that make sense to me, and labels and judgments about people. Internal systemic thinking is my thinking about things as I believe in, standards and principles I hold myself to, what I'm not yet but want to become, my thinking about what I ought to be, and my value in the context of my thinking about how I ought to be. So let's take a minute and just touch on what the difference is between all of this thinking. This is a lot of thinking. So if you look at the intrinsic row, you'll notice that it's thinking about people. It's my thinking about other people, and it's my thinking about myself as a person. When you move into the extrinsic realm or domain, it becomes thinking about, it is thinking about people, but it's thinking about people as things. Then when we move into the systemic domain, it's thinking about not just people, but it's thinking about systems and facts. It's interpreting things, but then it's also making judgments. And when it's thinking about people, it's thinking about people compared to or in the context of systems and schemes and different judgments. So the reason that we want to place more focus on the intrinsic domain, is that it keeps our thinking about people and not things, and not how people should be or ought to be, including yourself. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. And that was the great Albert Einstein who said that. So if we want to find clarity and forward movement through this intrinsic change, we have to change our thinking. And hopefully I will help you to embark on doing that. So now let's move into the review of the various constructs of health and wellness. Health and wellness, again, is not just the absence of disease. And health and wellness encompasses the whole person, not just pieces and parts. But there are pieces and parts that make up a whole person. So when we talk about health and wellness, we want to think about the different parts of health and wellness that we might want to change or we might want to find clarity around. And so there are 4 basic constructs of health and wellness. There's physical, there's mental, which includes intellectual and emotional or psychological. There's social, and there's spiritual. You may have also heard of health and wellness described in a wellness wheel. So this is another way to look at the different parts of the whole, the different parts that make up the whole entirety of your wellness, your well-being. There's, again, physical and spiritual and social that I pointed out in the last slide, but the mental is broken up into intellectual and emotional. And then there's also an added part of finance / occupation or career, if you will. So those are a couple of ways that you can look at the parts of wellness that make up whole wellness and you as a whole person. So now I want to offer you a resource or a very simple tool to use to set goals for yourself for this year, if that's something that interests you and something that you are wanting to do. And I want to emphasize that it's simple. And as we go through this, you'll recognize that, yeah, week 1's pretty light. I don't have to do much in week 1, and week 2 or week 3. Really, the only real, I shouldn't say real work. It's all of it encompasses some form of work, but it doesn't start getting more into it, really, if you will, until week 2 and week 3. And then week 4, you'll find is basically just repeating week 1, 2, and 3, or just week 3. So before I get into the different parts of this, I just want to clarify the difference between goals and strategies. When we're looking at goals that we want to set for ourselves so that we can become something, so that we can grow, so that we can improve, a lot of times our goals are really strategies masquerading as goals. And I'm going to refer to some of my intrinsic health and wellness coaching training that I've done to help you understand this. And this is from my training manual that's entitled Totally Coached. And this is from Intrinsic Solutions International. So what is a goal? A goal is not a strategy. Goals are intrinsic. And we spent a little bit of time talking about that intrinsic domain. So the intrinsic is, it represents you. It represents what you are wanting for yourself. It represents uniqueness, and it also represents forward movement. It's always evolving and changing and growing. So when you apply the intrinsic to goals, your goals are going to be what you are wanting. They're not going to be what you're wanting to do necessarily. It's going to be what you are wanting. So I'm going to give you some examples, 3 different examples of strategies that a lot of us have probably done or said to ourselves or tried to accomplish as goals. And these are strategies that are masquerading as goals. So the first one is, the first strategy masquerading as a goal is the phrase, I want to lose 30 pounds. And you might say to yourself, well, it sounds like a good goal. If you happen to be overweight and you want to lose 30 pounds, that sounds like a good goal. But if you look at it a little closer, where's the wanting in that? Okay, you're wanting to lose 30 pounds. For what reason? The 30 pounds, losing 30 pounds, there's a goal lying underneath that. Losing 30 pounds is actually the strategy. That's actually the doing. You're going to lose 30 pounds. That's something that you do. What is the goal? What's the wanting behind that 30 pounds? Or excuse me, wanting to lose those 30 pounds. That could be a number of things. It could be, I want to feel better about myself. I want to be more physically healthy. I want to have confidence. I want to be able to fit into my clothes. Those are all the wanting. That's the wanting. The goal is the strategy. In order to have more confidence about my physical self, my physical well-being, I'm going to lose 30 pounds. So that's the difference. The losing 30 pounds is the strategy. It's the way you're going to accomplish that goal. But the real goal is, I want to be physically healthy, for example. Okay, the next example is I want to increase my income by 10%. Again, that sounds like a great goal to achieve. But let's again take a closer look. Increasing my income by 10%, that's the doing. That's something that you do. What is the underlying goal behind that doing? It could be, I want to feel more financially secure. I want my financial wellness. I want to improve my financial wellness. That is the goal. The doing, the way you get to improving that financial wellness is the strategy. That's that I'm wanting to increase my income by 10%. Finally, the third example I wanted to share is I want to start making myself do things I promise. And the real telltale sign on that one is I want to make myself do things. Anytime you hear that word do, that is not intrinsic. You have left the intrinsic and you stepped into the extrinsic domain, which is the doing. It's the strategy. The real goal could be, I value integrity. Therefore, I want to teach myself how to keep promises. So hopefully that's helped you get a little sense of the difference between goals and strategies, and how strategies can masquerade as goals. So with that said, let's jump into this simple 12-week plan, because it'll be very beneficial to understand this difference between goals and strategies when you start out on week 1. So let's start first with the description of, or the title that I've given, phase 1. So this 12-week plan is divided up into 4 phases. So phase 1 is words have power. And I just want to spend just a few minutes on why I gave this phase this name. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, have seen the science experiment that is done by millions of third graders, where they take 2 identical plants, they use one as a control, and the other one they either sing to or speak loving to, or they may even choose to verbally abuse the plant. Okay, and then the control plant they just leave alone. They give each plant the same nutrients, the same amount of water, the same amount of sunlight, but one plant they treat, if you will, differently than the control plant. And depending on what words they share with that plant depends on how that plant either flourishes or dies, in a sense. If you praise a plant and give it loving words or sing to it, it grows and it flourishes and it becomes a thing of beauty. It reflects the words that are given to it. Well, the converse is true as well. If you speak unkind to a plant and you neglect it, and you, again, if you, we want to just focus on the words. If you speak unkindly to it, you verbally abuse it, what happens to that plant? It withers and dies. There's another example, another experiment that also shows the actual physical proof that words have power. Obviously, from this plant experiment, you can see, or you have seen, if you've seen this experiment, you see the actual physical ramifications of words and how they have power. They do have effect. There was a Japanese scientist, and again, forgive me, I do not have his name or his study referenced in this presentation, but there was a Japanese scientist who did an experiment using water. Now, if you think about water, and if you happen to listen to my last video, water in a cup or in a still lake, it seems very unassuming, very innocuous. It's just water, right? But then if you take that same exact water and you use gravity and you have gravity pull it over a cliff, what changes? Well, the intrinsic and latent power within that water is unleashed as it is being pulled over the cliff, and it creates power. It's that back to that hydroelectric plant. Hydroelectric plants generate electricity, which is great power, just from water falling over a waterfall. So this Japanese scientist took 2 glasses of water, or 2 containers of water. I don't remember if they were glasses or what they were, but he takes 2 containers of water, and one is the control. So he puts it in the same, with the same lighting, the same environment, etc. And the other glass or container of water, so the control, obviously, he doesn't do anything to, he doesn't say anything to, but the other one, he speaks different words to. I think actually he has 3 glasses of water. I'll have to look this experiment up. I apologize again that I don't have the exact experiment. So he has the control, and then he has, I believe he has 2 other containers of water. And one container, he speaks kind words, encouraging words, loving words to this glass of water. And then the 3rd glass of water, he speaks mean words, unkind words, and verbally abuses this glass of water. Well, if you look at the water with your natural eyes, you can't see any difference. They all look like glasses of water. There's no actual physical movement or force being put on this water, so you don't see it move. So you look at these 3 glasses of water, and on the surface, they all look identical. Well, then he takes some water and he puts it on a slide, and he looks at it under a microscope, and he looks at the molecules of water, and there is a huge marked difference between the water that he speaks kindly to and the water that he verbally abuses. So here again is another example of how words have great power. Even though you may not see any change on the surface, on the outside, if you think of the plant experiment, you could see the difference. You could physically see the difference. But with water, you don't physically see the difference unless you look at a microscope. Well, the same thing holds true for people. Words, you've heard the old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words can never hurt me. That actually is untrue. Words do have an effect. And yes, we can learn to not let them have an effect, but that's not what we're talking about here. We're just talking about how words really do have power. So with that, let's jump into phase 1, week 1. So you'll see throughout this plan that I use the word mantra just because it fit well in the slide, and it encompasses both a goal and an affirmation, something that you can write down, something that you can say to yourself. So whenever you see that word mantra, just think goal or affirmation. So all you have to do for week 1 in phase 1 is to choose a mantra and write it down. So this is something that you'll have to choose a time to actually sit down and really think about. This is where that wanting comes in. And it may be very uncomfortable at first. When I first started learning about the intrinsic, it was very uncomfortable to me because we are so used to living in an extrinsic and a systemic world. And so it may feel very uncomfortable to spend some time just thinking and pondering about, what do I really want for myself? What am I wanting? But that's all you have to do in week 1 is to think about, what are you really wanting for yourself? What are some things that you want for this 2023 year? It can be anything, and try your best to not let the shoulds and the coulds and what other people think is important affect your pondering on what you really want. So that's all you have to do in week 1 is to choose a mantra, choose a wanting, and then something that you can say to yourself or write down that describes that wanting. An example is maybe for I want to be physically healthy in 2023. I want to be financially secure in 2023. Or it can be something very simple, like my dental hygiene example in my last video. I want to have healthy teeth this year. Okay, that may be something that you're wanting. So choose something, really spend some time this first week. It can be this week if you want to start this at the beginning of this year. It can be whenever. You don't have to start this today. You don't have to start this week. This can be something that you think on and think, okay, yeah, this might be a good plan for me. And then maybe 6 months down the road, you want to start this plan. This is just a tool that I'm offering to you as a resource. So week 1, choose a mantra, a goal, and write it down. And make sure it's something that you're wanting. And keep in mind the difference between goals and strategies. Week 2, read your mantra every day. And I mean every day. Week 3, say your mantra out loud to yourself every day. See, this is where these words, saying them out loud, are going to start having an effect. Okay? Remember those experiments. When you start saying things out loud, then they start to really have an effect. Which brings us to phase 2. Words lead to thoughts. Just like with that experiment. The words that you hear, the words that you read, they put thoughts into your head. I mean, how many times have you read an article in a newspaper or on a blog? I know newspaper, who reads newspapers anymore, right? Sorry, I'm dating myself. When have you read something and it has produced thoughts in your mind and you start thinking about it? Well, then when you hear something, that also puts thoughts in your mind. Okay, so words lead to thoughts. Week 1, you're going to continue saying your mantra to yourself, but now you're going to add 5 minutes of meditation on your mantra every day. Now, when I say meditation, I don't want you to think, oh, I have to, find a meditation cushion or a meditation spot, and I've got to sit in a certain position, cross-legged. Okay, meditation just means pondering, thinking. You choose how you meditate. It's your meditation. If you want to find a specific meditation spot, if you want to buy a meditation cushion, if you think that will help you feel more connected, that's fine. That's beautiful. That's wonderful. But don't feel like you have to do anything any certain way. This is your plan. This is you finding clarity in a way that works for you, in a way that fits you. Okay, so then week 2, you are going to continue to say your mantra, and then you're going to add 10 minutes of meditation, however you want to meditate, on your mantra every day. Week 3, you're going to continue saying your mantra every day, and then you're going to add 15 minutes of meditation on your mantra every day. Don't worry, that's as high as it gets. 15 minutes seems to be kind of a crucial amount of time to spend on meditation and pondering. You're welcome to spend as much time as you want, as much time as you have, but 15 minutes seems to be a good time. It's not so much time that it will greatly affect your daily schedule, because I know that everyone has different schedules, and changing things in your schedule can create anxiety and can totally sabotage any kind of forward movement that you're trying to find, clarity and forward movement that you're trying to find. So just rest assured, 15 minutes is going to be the basis for this. Phase 3 is thoughts lead to action. Whatever amount of time you spend on a particular thought is going to determine how much it affects your life, basically. And thoughts definitely lead to action. The more you think about something, the more it becomes a part of you, and again can lead to action. I'm trying to think of some positive examples, and everything that's coming to my mind is people that think about doing bad things enough, they end up doing them, and then when it gets so far that they wonder, well, how could this person have ever, say for example, beat up their wife or whatever bad example? Well, it's because they thought on it long enough until it led to that action. Well, the same is true for positive actions. The more you think about it, I mean, go back to the Walt Disney example, his quote of stop talking and start doing. Well, he had to be thinking about Disneyland for a long time. I'm sure, pondered on that. It was a dream that he had. He spent a lot of time thinking about it, and because he continued to think about it, look what happened. What came of it? He realized his dream. Okay, so thoughts lead to action. Week 1 is to continue saying your mantra to yourself every day. Continue meditating for 15 minutes every day on that mantra. And then here's the extra step. Determine one action step that you can do. Here's the doing that will lead to that wanting, that goal. And when I want to clarify, when I talk about focusing on the intrinsic and the wanting, it doesn't mean that we don't ever use the extrinsic or the systemic domain. It just means that we put more emphasis on that intrinsic. There is a place and a time and a benefit for all of those domains, the extrinsic and the systemic. They are needed, but we need to spend more time to focus on the intrinsic. So you're going to determine in that week 1, the extra step is that you determine one action step. You determine one thing that you can do that will lead toward that overall goal. Week 2 is you continue saying your mantra to yourself every day. You continue to meditate for 15 minutes, but now you're going to meditate on your action step. So you're going to change your meditation from just your mantra to your action step. You're going to think on how you're going to apply it, what you're going to do, that sort of thing. Then week 3, you're going to continue saying your mantra to yourself every day. You're going to continue meditating for 15 minutes on your action step, and then you're going to begin to put your action step into practice. Now, this practice is going to look different for everybody and for every goal that you choose. This might be something that you are going to do every day. It might be something that you do once a week. For example, you might have a goal that you want to increase your love of others and your service for others. And your action step might be, well, I'm going to do one act of service for someone every week. Well, you're not going to be doing that every day, right? You're only going to be doing it once a week. But you're still going to be meditating, and you're still going to be saying your mantra to yourself every day. There are going to be other action steps that it might be something that you need to do every single day. Just take, for example, my silly brushing teeth action step. I had to do that every day to get better oral hygiene and better dental health. So again, that's just a couple of examples of how these action steps are going to be different. They're going to be unique because they're going to be yours and they're going to be intrinsic. All right. So phase 4, I have entitled Always Moving Forward. You're going to continue saying your mantra to yourself, and you're going to continue meditating, and then you're going to continue practicing your action step, and you're going to either repeat phase 3. So you may be after phase 3, you may feel like, okay, that really helped me along my goal. And you may be done with that action step. You may want to move on to a different action step. But you may feel like, okay, I want to continue doing this action step because I feel like this action step is really effective and it's really going to get me where I'm wanting to be. And so you're going to either continue practicing your action step from phase 3, or you're going to find a new action step, and you're going to repeat phases 1 through 3. I'm sorry, you're going to find a new goal. I'm sorry, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So you're going to either repeat phase 3 for a new action step, Or if you feel like, okay, I kind of want to do a different goal. Maybe you've reached your actual goal of what you're wanting and you want a new goal. So then you're going to repeat phases 1 through 3 for a new goal. And hopefully that makes sense. All right. So here are some takeaways I invite you to leave with. And feel free to take away whatever you want, whatever made sense to you, whatever fits for you. The first one is what this silly figure of I greater than E greater than S stands for. Remember, I stands for intrinsic, E stands for extrinsic, S stands for systemic. And we want a balance of these three. So even though we want to focus on intrinsic before the extrinsic, before the systemic, it doesn't mean that we abandon the extrinsic and the systemic. It just means that we start with the intrinsic. We place more emphasis on the intrinsic. That is that wanting. What are you wanting for yourself? What is important to you? What has value to you? Not anyone else, not what you should think has value. What really has value and importance to you, and what are you wanting for yourself? If you want to place more emphasis and focus on that, and then have that wanting inform the extrinsic, which is the doing, and then have that inform your systemic, which is the system or the becoming, your whole system. Then if you want to use the tool of the 12-week plan, I invite you to choose one health and wellness construct to work in. So choose one part of your whole to work in, because a lot of times if you think about the whole picture, if you think too big of a picture, it can be overwhelming. So we want to break it down into one step, one part. We are a whole person made up of various different parts. So in order to have whole wellness or wellness of our whole, we a lot of times need to break it down into the individual parts or constructs that make up that whole. So choose one to work in. Then if you want to use the 12-step plan, it's kind of like this 12-step program. If any of you are familiar with other 12-step programs, this is a simple 12-step plan leading to goals or for accomplishing goals. Remember that words have power. Words lead to thoughts. Thoughts lead to action, and action leads to moving forward. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like it. And if you like it, please share it if you think of someone that might benefit from it. And again, if you would like to subscribe, please hit the subscribe button. And again, if you would like to contact me for any one-on-one coaching, feel free to click the link that either copy the link that's in this presentation, or I will include the link in the video descriptions. Again, I hope you have a fabulous day and a fabulous start to your 2023.